Hello, it is Wednesdays with Chasey Poo, and today, I don't know why that was so like Today, I'm actually working on my thesis and I'm taking a little lunch break, so I thought while my fake chicken is in the oven, I'll make the video now and just get it over with so we can do the thing. What's happening? Oh, those are the cats. Today we're talking about airport security, and I have taken the plane and gone through airport security so many times. That sounds like I fly a lot. I'm gonna tell you maybe like 7 times in the last 5 years. That I've like flown. So I have experiences that have happened, and I'm just gonna really focus on airport security and not border security because I've taken the bus down the border. We've talked about border stuff before. I have stories, but right now we're just gonna talk about airport security. So I think that one of the first questions that everybody asks is, can I pack or bind? And I really want to just go into that quickly because yes, you can. I flew from Burlington, Vermont to Portland, Oregon 4 years ago, and I was wearing a binder, and I was not packing, but I was wearing a binder, and everything was fine. I had a lot of anxiety because it was my first time flying since I was like 7 or something, but there was no problem, there was nothing. I was almost 1 year on T, I think, yeah, so I didn't really look like my picture. I just kind of looked fat and with a mustache compared to my picture before. I looked really different, but there was absolutely no problems with that. And the other times that I've flown with a binder as well, like for surgery, obviously I had to fly to surgery with a binder on. That was fine too. Absolutely no problems with that. I think one time I actually got patted down. I went to Scotland, and from Scotland back to New York, there was like a stop in Dublin, and there was it was a small layover, but for some reason I got like scanned for a special screening or some bullshit, and they had to like really like in-depthly touch me, and I was so uncomfortable, but nothing happened because I was trans, I don't think, but I mean they weren't really telling me anything, but yeah. So that was like the American border going back into America, I guess. But packing, I did pack, and I remember once having my packer and about to go through the thing, and I was like, oh my god, I forgot to take my packer off. And I had to go through that one thing, that the security thing where you like have to put your hand up and it goes like for like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then you go out. And I don't remember if it was this time, but one time it actually beeped somewhere on my leg, like right where my pocket is, and I was like, I don't have any metal in there though, and I was like, am I wearing a packer? And I think it might have been the time where I was wearing a packer, and I was like, but it wasn't, no, I wasn't wearing a packer. It was the time that I took it out, and it still did it, and I was like, what? But it wasn't near my peen area. I think there was just like, maybe like metal or something in my pants. I don't even know what it was. There was nothing. It was fine. They did like that beep beep, they touched me and shit, and it was fine. But the time that I did go with my packer in that thing and through the other thing, it was fine. Nothing happened. I had a lot of anxiety, so I was sweating like crazy, but absolutely no problem. And it was recent actually because I did it last year. This year when I flew, I did not bring a packer, just because my packer is, I don't like the ones that I have, and I want to go back to old school like Mr. Limpy, I think. But yeah, I don't know. So now that that's over with and that you know that packing and binding, I'm sure my experiences are different from other people, of course. I'm just saying the person that I am now, and this is me, this is my experiences. I don't represent everybody. People probably had really bad experiences, and I wouldn't be surprised. So, airport security. Was that it? About trans things, yeah. Okay, I have a friend, my roommate, who actually every single time he goes flying, this has nothing to do with being trans, I'm just telling you his story, he gets selected for a special screening every time. Every single time he's flown, and he lives in PEI, so it's kind of far from here, so he has to fly home, and he flew to like a, I don't know, nerd board game conference or something in like Indiana. I don't know where he was, and I'm so specific, huh? Whatever, all I'm saying is that he gets picked for a special screening. It has nothing to do with being trans, but I think that after a while it's really hard to like look at yourself and look at like, you get picked for a special screening. It's hard to be like, they picked me because it's random, and not they picked me because I'm trans. And it's really hard because I feel like we get picked on for everything else, and it's hard to be like, well, actually, no, it's not because I'm trans that it happened, but it sucks that I'm trans because it's happening. And I feel like it's hard to differentiate that. Reed is gonna tell you a story. I don't know if Reed's after me, I think, yeah. Or before, whatever. Reed will tell you a story, probably, about and I'm just like telling you his story because what's wrong with me? Like I have no stories of myself, so I'm telling other people's stories. Yeah, why not? Whatever, he got picked for like a special screening or some shit like that, and he was telling someone about it because he knew before. I don't know what was happening. And the person is cis and was like, it's no big deal. They didn't pick you because you're trans. He's like, I know they didn't pick me because I'm trans, but it's gonna suck because I'm trans. Like it just like, I feel like people don't understand that, like, yeah, we get it, they're not picking on us because we're trans for certain different things, but the things that we get picked on, like, sure, cis people have to deal with it too, but it's really different for trans people, especially with the airport shit, because it's really confusing if you don't pass, and if you're like, or if you're not planning on passing, and whatever, like, and your gender is very androgynous, and they can't really tell, so they go with your passport, but you're really uncomfortable with, like, I don't know, someone's hands all over you, and even if it's like, if they take like a female officer to pat you down, but you really are a trans guy and like you're not passing and it really sucks, or if you are passing and they just like give you a female one anyways, and it's just like, why would they do that? It's ridiculous and it sucks, and God, it sucks, and it happens to everybody, of course it does, but because we're trans, we have to deal with like the anxiety of having it, like what if they find out, and what if they ask me more questions because I'm trans, what if they don't let me go on the plane and shit like that, I don't know. Anyways, I'm smelling my fake chicken, it smells amazing, I'm like literally like, my shirt's just up the whole time, I'm just like, peeking, you can't even see, but whatever. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you later.